I think I can put a positive spin on this.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No matter how bad the movie and our review may be, you're still going to make some cool artwork. And there's a lot of good shots in this movie.
There's positives to this, yeah.
There are.
We'll get to it. Hello and welcome to The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. I'm Phil Rood. I'm the dad.
I'm Austin Rood. I'm the son. Every week we watch a movie and then we talk about it and then I forget that part of the intro.
Every
week.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
I was going to ask you, but I mean, I guess...
No, take the reins,
It's all about
please.
me.
I'm going to give you the floor.
Okay. I was good.
Okay.
That's about it.
All right.
Yep. I worked. I took a break. I'm back to working.
There you go.
That's kind of how the adult life works
Full
now.
circle, yes. Normally, we'd talk about what we were watching this week, but we wanted to take a little bit of a... Is this a detour? Is this a backtrack?
I think this is breaking news.
It's not quite breaking. It's a few days old. And we'll
interrupt this program
another
to tell you
week.
something you've known for ages.
But, I mean, we talk about Avatar, we talk about Korra.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to talk about the Avatar movie studio that's opening.
Yeah.
A friend and listener, Andy, sent us this article this week from IGN. It's Avatar: The Last Airbender franchise expanding with new animated movie and a dedicated studio.
This is a branch of Nickelodeon.
Right. And it's going to be, it sounds like Paramount Plus, the streaming service, is going to host most of this content, which...
That's annoying, but, you know.
Look, I can't take on any more streaming platforms than I already have. If somebody wants to share their password with us when this stuff starts rolling out...
we'll just make a community one.
I mean, honestly, like, it is super annoying.
I'm hoping that Nickelodeon has a deal with Netflix. They have the Avatar shows on there now. I'm wondering if they will get them, like, a year later. So, like, if you want to watch the movie now, you can watch it on Paramount.
I would bet it's going to go the other way.
You think?
I think they're going to, when their Netflix deal runs out, it'll disappear. It'll all go to Paramount. It'll all go to one place.
It's so frustrating. Everything's
it's
off.
what Disney does with all their, as the contracts expire, they go, okay, you're Disney Plus now. And
but Disney owns a lot of good shit. Like, you go to other companies like Paramount, what do they have other than Avatar?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, Paramount's in super old movie studio. I don't know.
I'm sure they have things,
I don't know if Paramount Plus is hosting, like, oh, here's our huge catalog of Paramount movies going back 75 years. That would be cool, honestly.
Right.
But if it's just, here's a bunch of, like, Peacock, here's a bunch of TV shows we're making that you don't want to watch. It's like...
I might actually just buy new Avatar stuff. I have... It was actually really funny because I bought the first 3 seasons of Avatar on DVD, and then
right before
right after I got it, it went to Netflix. So I could just buy it all up.
And also it sounds like they're focused mainly on making movies.
Right.
Which means, like, that's a rentable thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like buying a TV show or committing to a TV show. Sunday afternoon, $5 on iTunes or whatever, and you can rent whatever you want to.
Yeah.
Or Redbox even.
I just think a new streaming service is like a big commitment.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new Twilight Zone or Star Trek because it's on CBS's thing, and I'm like, I don't want anything else on CBS.
At some point, I'm going to break down, and I'm just going to get, like, a 3-month subscription and binge that new Star Trek show.
Start.
That's all I need.
Use your 30-day trial and
yeah,
or whatever. I don't know what it is.
But they would. They're not just going to be making Avatar movies. They did say in the press release, it said TV shows and movies.
Okay.
So I'm expecting a mix of both.
Is the studio, I couldn't quite get a handle on in the article if it will be making exclusively like the Avatar world content, or are they going to make other things as well?
I think it's the Avatar world because
Okay.
it's called Avatar Studios.
But I mean, Lucasfilm, well, yeah, it's not Star Wars film, but Lucasfilm did other things outside of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it's
giving
the main focus of this article is more Avatar content,
and by the original creators. Because that live action Netflix show, they left the project,
right?
And so
that's true.
So now we have new content that's being created by the content creators that we signed up for, not like someone else's reimagining of Avatar.
So is that Netflix show off the table now?
No, it's still going. No one's gonna watch it. But
weird.
Yeah, pretty much all the fans turned on it when they found out.
Well, I wonder if
maybe they'll quietly cancel it.
It could be, or if it's in their contract that they own it, then they could possibly,
like the show rights.
Not the show rights, but the movie that they make. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's sort of like Netflix has the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon sequel because they produced that. So now the original movie is no longer on Netflix, but the sequel to it still is.
Just jump in halfway through the story.
So, well, I mean, it is kind of a standalone anyway. But
okay.
No, it is interesting in that I feel like the Avatar world is a big and sort of extensive world, in the same way Star Wars is. And if they're going to focus their studio on just Avatar stuff, they could probably make a lot of cool stuff. What are you hoping to see? Not what do you think they'll make first, but what are you hoping?
Here's my 5-part.
Here's my fan fiction.
I'm gonna give you a whole show here. No, but what I do want is a show that's a sequel to Korra. But I don't just want like a rehashing of I don't know. I want the Avatar cycle to continue. I think that would be interesting to see.
So more Avatars?
Yeah, which we're gonna get anyway, but
yeah, I go the other way. I go the same way that I like Star Wars going, the same way that I think Marvel should go, and get away from the big save the entire world. I'm the Avatar. I'm the savior of humanity. And I mean, there's a whole world of benders, who have these abilities, who aren't the Avatar, and follow an earthbender, like in the same way, like the Mandalorian, most of the time is separate from like the Skywalker saga.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a story of a wandering samurai, basically. Like, you could easily do that in the Avatar world.
I think there's also you say like Avatar, like that has to be fighting the world, but I think we could get an Avatar with just like, oh, he's this very calm individual that goes around and is a peacemaker.
But yeah, I'm just saying, like, the Avatar by default is sort of the central figure of this world, no matter what they're doing. But as far as like, hey, here's a little side quest. Here's a series about Iroh. Here's a series about maybe that's a little too close to, but you know what I mean? Like
just like some
Iroh,
random soldier,
right? An Iroh type character who's conflicted, and like there's so many ways you could go with this.
Yeah, Avatar, like with what we have with the existing history, there's so much content already that like you could fill in the gaps. You could just create a whole new thing. There's pretty much anything they want to do, they can do.
They built enough backstory and just hints at the world that you could offshoot any one of those things or explore any corner of that world.
I think this is an interesting thing in like show history, because like Avatar started out and it's gotten increasingly more popular as it's aged, which almost never happens. Like, more people have caught onto it, especially when it came onto Netflix. And now it's like at the height of its popularity. Like, more people are talking about it now than when it was airing or when Korra was airing. So it's just like, and that's the reason they brought it back, and that's the reason they're making a studio.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that that it did come around to streaming, which is like the old school way of like syndication. You know, a show would be on the air, it would go off the air, and then it would go to like basic cable, and you know, like
just reruns
and stuff like that. But now it's like streaming services, and the fact that your age group, who was kids when it was on, are young adults now, who are kind of driving the market.
Or even full adults showing their kids. I've seen that.
Yeah, it's a widely popular thing. I think, yeah, for TV it's probably unprecedented. But like when the prequels for Star Wars came out, that was my generation's time that we were showing our kids. You know, like it brought Star Wars back around. So,
but that's the thing, is like, this is the studio, like, they didn't release anything new. It's still the existing things that they've had.
Korra's only what? 6 or 7 years old?
2012 or something? Yeah, but like, when this all started, like, it just went to Netflix. There was no big thing, and they listened to the hype. That's the big thing for me, is the fact that they, like, nothing pushed them to make this choice. They just saw like, oh, this is something people want, and so they're gonna give it to us.
Yeah.
Which is obviously gonna make them money, but like,
sure, of course it's a business decision,
it's a new way to do it, I think. Or one that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, I don't know. We've seen versions of it before. I mean, as far as people listening to fans, I think
the closest I can think of is like when Brooklyn Nine-Nine came back.
Yeah, Family Guy came back.
It got canceled?
Shows have been canceled and brought back.
It's rare though, and I feel like it's getting more common.
I feel like I keep the Star Wars comparison close at hand. I feel like Star Wars listens to a lot of its fan base, which
sometimes
I think
at
is
a detriment.
Increasingly dangerous to listen to your fan base. Listen to the fact that they want more, but don't let them dictate the story. And I think that's something that...
also, don't let their bigoted ways win.
Well, I think...
Don't write out the first important Asian character just because people bullied her.
Well, I mean, did they write the first important Asian character in there just because people wanted an Asian character, and then they didn't really know what to do with her?
This is such an unrelated topic, but why do people hate Rose?
I just think her story was terrible.
She's hope. She gives Finn hope. She teaches him about the Resistance.
Sorry, Finn's a lame character too.
Okay.
Which he was also, I think, a main black character, because they understood that people wanted main black characters, and they didn't know what to do. They just go, okay, black guy, Asian girl, we got it.
And
what do we do with
them?
We have no idea. And that's where I'm saying they listened to their audience on one side that they didn't know what to do with, and they listened to their audience on another side, instead of just creating interesting characters and then casting them.
Right.
You know what I mean? They said, okay, black guy.
We're gonna please the progressives and the bigots by casting minorities.
You can listen to both sides too much.
We will cast minorities, but we won't actually make them important in the story.
It's a pretty it's a pretty weird line to walk when you start listening too much to your audience.
Look, I've read fan fiction, and
yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
Fans should not be dictating how stories go, okay? Leave it to the professionals, please.
Yeah, but that's it's interesting, and I'll be interested to see what comes out of there. Out of Avatar Studios. I'm Series 3, Book 3 of Korra. We are going to do an episode on that soon, I hope.
Right.
I need to get on that. But I'm not making a big secret. I'm not enjoying Korra very much. But
that's fine.
It is taking place there's no denying that the world is an interesting place.
We can also check out comics.
And there is, I would probably like to read some
There's
Avatar
like adult
comics.
Aang comics and stuff. There's
adult content of Aang? All right. We just established no fan fiction.
Okay.
Whatever I think of the storylines they're doing in Korra, it's still an interesting world that everything inhabits. And the possibilities of that world are huge.
Right.
So, even if I get all the way through Korra and don't enjoy any of it, which isn't true, I've enjoyed parts of it.
Pro bending, your favorite.
Yeah, if they do it like a full on pro bending season, an animated fake sports.
God.
That would actually be super clever.
They're gonna do a sports movie,
I would never watch it. Yes.
the underdog team of benders.
Yeah, the Bad News Bears of pro bending. But I'll be keeping an eye on that and seeing what comes out, and maybe we'll review something.
I hope so.
Their first thing, they haven't announced what it's about, but it is planned to be a theatrical release. So
right, and it's starting production
this year. Yeah. I don't know if it's now, but I mean,
go.
Animated movies take a little while. Hopefully, by the time it's done, we will be able to safely go to theaters again. And
right, I want them to take their time. I don't want a rushed, just spit out Avatar after Avatar after Avatar.
We've seen the fatigue that comes with that. So it's, it'll be interesting to see.
I want an Into the Spider-Verse, but it's all the avatars meeting each other.
That actually might be kind of cool. So,
anyway, that's not what we're watching
hire
today.
Us. We will write that movie.
Yes, we will. Anyway, this week we are watching, we did watch the 2006 adventure drama, The Astronaut Farmer, in which a former NASA astronaut builds a rocket on his family farm despite the government attempting to stop him. It stars Billy Bob Thornton, Virginia Madsen, Bruce Dern, J.K. Simmons, Tim Blake Nelson, and Bruce Willis. It's written by Mark Polish and Michael Polish, and directed by Michael Polish as well.
That's right, the Polish brothers. I think the studio is something like Two Polish Brothers,
really,
or production company or something. Yeah, it's and the little girls in this movie are one or both of the Polish brothers' daughters, because they're all credited, and one of the Polish brothers is one of the FBI guys. So they're all over this movie. I
see.
I checked out.
I could tell those daughters did not pass an audition.
No, but what they were given to do, the moments at the breakfast table.
Right, they were just given, I thought, little girl,
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff I felt like was really just rolling the cameras and Billy Bob Thornton just kind of talking and kind of being playful with the little girls.
Oh, and cereal, yeah.
It all played as very natural, joking about breakfast, just dad stuff. And it's I thought those were actually some of the better moments in this movie, the most genuine stuff in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, they're child actors. I mean, it's not like you had a high bar for them to get over.
I know.
So
this is a weird movie, though.
It is a weird movie.
Not what I expected.
We just ran down the cast, and I just want to... Can we talk about the cast real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think the cast is amazing.
J.K. Simmons is the only one I really know.
J.K. Simmons, Billy Bob Thornton is... he's great.
He's Farmer, right?
He's the main character.
Okay.
He's... the last big thing I remember him doing is Amazon Prime series called Goliath, where he's kind of like this kind of disgraced alcoholic corporate lawyer, but he's actually like super good, and he's like taking on the big... It's a legal drama, but it's really good, and he's really great in it. Billy Bob Thornton, I think, is a really interesting actor who does a lot of really good work, even if he's one of those guys who be like in a movie like this, and you're like, this movie isn't all that, but like Billy Bob Thornton is fun to watch.
He was entertaining.
Yeah, I like him. Virginia Madsen, she's great. Bruce Dern was her dad, the old man.
Right.
And Bruce Dern's just like, I wonder how they got all these people to do this movie, because this movie is a little trite. It's a little thin, and I don't know. This movie's kind of a mess.
It really is a mess.
What are your thoughts on cast or anything, movie in general?
There are a lot of thoughts. I think, first off, the structure of the movie is weird. I feel like it just jumps into it, and then nothing happens for like the beginning. I don't know. It's a weird start. And then they pull a like fake, like, oh, he launched the rocket, but it failed. And then I really thought like, oh, the lesson of this movie is to not put too much into these very far-fetched dreams.
Right.
I thought this was like a reality check of the movie, and then they like pull this rebuilding the rocket in 30 minutes.
It's so bad. The last third of this movie.
This movie is not realistic, but even no. It like breaks down in the last 30 minutes.
It's not about realism. If you really believe like he would have even gotten this far before the government intervened. You know, this whole town is talking about the crazy man building a rocket in his barn.
Right.
And you know, like, oh, they don't raise an eyebrow until one person makes a... Like, he's gotten this far.
To be fair, every town has its weirdos, you know? There's,
for sure.
There's the guy that thinks he's Jesus.
Look,
like,
Andy
no one believes that this guy is actually building a rocket.
Andy sent us this article about Avatar. Andy was one of my best friends, and for a while, my neighbor growing up. His dad had a straight-up cannon and a Gatling gun. He had a Gatling gun mounted. It was a fake Gatling gun, but it was a real cannon.
Show and tell must have been crazy.
Everybody knew that Paul had this cannon out there. And, you know, it was one of those small town weird things that everybody knew about and nobody really raised an eyebrow about because they were just like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it was, it is really interesting to think that, yes, nobody cried foul on this. Everyone made fun of him. All of these other weird things that are super unrealistic. And that was not my problem with the movie. Like, the non-realism of this movie was just something I accepted as this is the world we have.
Right. I was willing to let it pass because I want to see a cool story about a guy building a rocket. But like the fact that it was destroyed and then rebuilt and we didn't get to see it just felt like a weird, like, right. Okay, you got your cop out, like
this idea of, he spent whatever, 15, 20 years building this thing piece by piece. And then he slaps it together in this montage because he had a bag of cash. You know, right. It's almost like, well, I mean, really?
My thing to make this story more interesting is he secretly killed his father-in-law so that they could get the money to rebuild the rocket.
That donut was poisoned.
Yeah.
Wow, that takes a in a whole new dark direction there. So
A more interesting direction.
probably a more interesting direction.
Okay, overall, I think this movie is just, like, mediocre.
Mediocre is, that's fair. There's good aspects to this movie,
Mm-hmm.
but as a whole, I think this movie's kind of a big old failure.
Yes.
But it's not terrible. It's not painful to watch. It's not like offensively bad, but it just doesn't
it just
execute
missed the mark.
real well. Yeah.
It sold a premise, and then it was like, well, you know.
I think it kind of delivers on the premise, and then it kind of has its cake and eats it too at the end. That's what the second rocket is sort of, like, oh yeah, we want to show him failing, but we also want to show him succeeding. You know, where it's really so like, is that I don't know. It's a weird movie, and by the way, he lost his wedding ring at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
In the capsule. He didn't lose it. He put it in the capsule. And then he crashed the rocket. He had the rocket towed to the junkyard. He rebuilt the rocket. And then his wedding ring was in the second rocket.
It must have been the same parts or something.
It's so weird. It's so clunky. That's
right.
The problem. If they had cut that line where he said, "Tow that thing to the junkyard," it would have worked. But it's also like, has he been not wearing his wedding ring for like a year? And his wife, who called him out on it before, has never called him out on it again?
I totally thought he sold it. I thought the reason they brought that up was he sold it so that he could get more money for the rocket. Really, and
I don't know what you get for a men's wedding band. I don't think mine would bring very much.
I don't know.
A band of gold, but
melts it down.
That is interesting. Yeah, because they do never show him taking it off,
right?
And they do kind of show him that he's keeping things from his wife. That would have been an interesting aspect.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This movie set up so much interesting stuff with its premise. And it has, I think the most frustrating thing is it has a really cool story to tell about, you know, we tell kids you can do whatever you want. And then actually the world sets up all of these obstacles. And it's like, you can do whatever you want. You just have to find a way to work the system. And this is this guy trying to work the system. But then they like, just the scenes where they talk about like, achieving your dreams, it's all over the place. Like there's no cohesion to it.
It is all over the place. Yeah, let's take a break and come back with that, because I have a lot more to say about that.
All right.
About just that idea.
Right. We'll leave them on a cliffhanger.
Ooh, yeah. And we are back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Austin. How was your break?
It was good.
Yeah.
I was hanging on a cliff the whole time, but
oh wow. Well,
yeah. I need you to finish your thought and pull me back up.
Okay, let's finish our thought about following your dreams. I think this movie is insanely naive. I think this movie exists at the time it was made in this little bubble of optimism that existed in 2006, when it was
2 years before a recession.
Yes, because what was happening in that time was all of a sudden people who could never afford houses were able to afford houses because of subprime lending. What they didn't know is those mortgages were going to explode in 2 years and bankrupt people were realizing the American dream at that time.
Right.
Of home ownership. It was this little breath of optimism. We were a few years into the Gulf War. This was post 9/11. It was kind of like a rough start to the 2000s. Rough start. Yeah, it's a little rocky.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's little jabs about like, you couldn't find WMDs. If I was building a WMD, you wouldn't have found it, which is actually a really funny joke. It was even funnier in 2006. But
I mean, the fact that his mortgage is ending, like his house is being foreclosed on in this movie, that's kind of weird right before the recession.
Yeah, but it's also a very real farmer problem. It's a very real problem for ranchers and farmers, and it always has been, and it always will be. It's one of those things that farmers are constantly up against the wall.
Yeah. So when you say this movie is naive, do you mean people should not be building rockets in their backyard?
Not at all. I don't think that's even the naive part of it. I think this movie is naive in the idea of, I think there's a very corny speech that he gives in his trial about, they told me I could be anything I wanted to. And in today's world, that would never show up in a movie made today because people understand so much more. This doesn't seem like that long ago, but I think people have been made so much more aware of, yes, you can be anything you want to be if you come from the right background, if you are the right color, if you are this series of things that equal a certain amount of privilege. I mean, to have a white dude standing up and saying, they told me I could believe I could be anything I wanted to be, and now you're telling me I can't, and I'm pissed about it. That seems like a very Trump era thing.
That's very real life.
It is very real now.
This guy launched himself into space and wasn't like killed for it.
Well, not even. I'm just taking the space thing out of it.
Right.
The entire mission statement of this movie, is naive. It talks about dreams, but actually, he's obsessed to an unhealthy degree. Like This movie is very flippant about suicide. This movie's very flippant about mental health. It's very just offhand. Oh, you need a mental health evaluation. Go see the school nurse. And it's a little joke about small towns, but it's like, no, seriously, you need to go to a mental health professional for something like this.
He does have an unhealthy obsession.
He has he's willing to kind of shred his family's livelihood for this very they have one actual real conversation about it in the entire movie, and his wife is spot on about it. She's like, this whole dream that we work on is for you, and now we're going to lose our home over it. And it like that's the real need of this movie for me, and then it's never addressed again. It's so weird.
There's so much nuance in all of the topics that are brought up. But they don't touch
address
on
it.
it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, no, ignore that.
That's where I'm saying this movie is naive.
I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that astronaut offers him a space on a shuttle.
Oh, yeah. Bruce Willis comes in and he's like his old astronaut buddy.
And he doesn't take it. That is your other option. If you want to paint a picture of like, you can do anything you want, but life has tough things and sometimes it doesn't always work out. But there are alternatives.
Well, that is something where I think I would look at that and say, I could see his point of view on that, honestly. He's put all this work in. He's put all this time in. He feels like he is just as qualified as anybody else. And I do get that, but it is sort of like, also, other than fighting the government on this, why don't we just take you up in the shuttle? But yeah, it's a weird movie in that the interesting parts of this movie aren't about a man building a rocket. They're about in some ways it's have you seen Field of Dreams?
I have not.
Okay. Field of Dreams is about a man who ruins his cornfield to build a baseball diamond there because he hears a voice that tells him to do it.
Okay.
And it's a movie about having faith and in something bigger than yourself. And the whole town is telling him he's crazy while he's doing it. Everything interesting that movie brings up it follows up on. It explores these weird little psychic, this serendipitous kind of thing that this guy goes through before his big payoff. So when you get to the payoff at the end, you're invested. You've explored the ups, the downs, the weird shit. Would I do this? Would I,
right.
all of this stuff. And this movie sort of wants to be Field of Dreams, but fails to actually do the work to get that payoff at the end.
I like that comparison. I'm gonna throw another one at you. Noah's Ark.
Okay.
Everyone thinks he's crazy and he's on this mission from God and he's gonna do this even if everyone's not on board. Like, that's low-key what I thought was, like, inspiring this story.
That's a really good comparison, actually. Yeah.
Because everyone knows the part of the story where Noah tries to drive his ark alone and it explodes and then he makes a new one.
He breaks all his ribs and then he gets to gather all the animals again and or a movie I think came out maybe around this time, maybe it was a few years before that, The Prestige, which is a movie about obsession, unhealthy obsession. This movie paints obsession as a very healthy thing. And
it's a cute quirk. It's like, aw.
Yeah, when she gives him that grocery bag full of money and says, build your rocket, she goes, what? It's like this big speech.
She said something like, without the rocket, we're just a dysfunctional family.
Yeah. But before that, she even leads in with, like, we vowed to love each other in sickness and health, and that includes mental health, and you're crazy. But I'm standing by you. And it's just sort of like, no. It's not about just, like, this movie fundamentally misunderstands mental illness, what actual mental illness and what actual unhealthy obsession is.
You can live a fulfilled and healthy life without fulfilling your obsession.
Fixating on this one thing. There is
right.
There's a very fine line between your dream and working very hard on your dream and your goals and being obsessed with something to the detriment of everything else in your life. And this movie doesn't even... That's an interesting movie. Explore that fine line between the two.
Right.
And this movie doesn't do it. It just goes... Yeah, he's obsessed, and that's what being a great American is all about. That's
the thing. They took the safe route. I think they just wanted a happy, take the family, and...
Kind of.
Can I relate this to something personal? Because when I was watching the movie...
Ooh, spill the tea, Austin.
Oh, yeah. That time when I built a rocket... No, I am someone who's always been interested in Mars. And something I like to think about is, like, in my lifetime, we are going to have humans on Mars. The thing is, we might not get them back. Mars is rough. There's a lot of factors. Pretty much, if you're going to be the first person on Mars, or part of that first colony, there's a good chance you're going to die.
You better like it.
Yeah. That's my thing. So, like, I've always wondered, well, maybe when I'm old and, I've done my whole life, I can just, like, go to Mars for those last few years. But, like, just as a hypothetical, and while I was watching this movie, I started thinking, like, would I do that? Like, would I go on a rocket? It's basically the same obsession this guy has. And he convinced me that I shouldn't do that.
Interesting.
Like this movie was such a portrayal of, like, he's an asshole who's making his family's whole lives about his dream. I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave my family behind and, like, have them watch as I die on another planet far away from them. Like,
yeah, that's a
mean thing to do.
It's a really interesting thing because, on the one hand, you do have, Bruce Willis comes to see him and he tells him, like, you left when your dad died. And he's like, you essentially failed the test.
Right.
Saying, like, you have to be all in on going to space if you're part of the space program. And I don't think he's probably wrong.
He's not.
The military pilots that become astronauts, it's like if you watch the Last Dance documentary series or the Tiger Woods, these above and beyond performers are kind of mentally detached and kind of compartmentalize everything in their life.
Nowadays, astronauts start training at like 12.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing, you talked about privilege, like, it is a privilege. Like, the people who are getting into astronaut programs are like rich people who have the resources.
Yes.
They're able to get fitness and all well and
special tutoring. They get into good schools. It's
right.
Everything. Everybody who makes it somewhere like in a program like that is, and they do portray Farmer in this movie as he comes from a ranching background. And he excelled at engineering when he went to college. He was a military. And I do believe that is a possibility as well. That is. People can sort of work their way up through it. But the idea that Bruce Willis is kind of telling him, there is a coloring of obsession is a thing that winners have. And I don't think that's wrong. I think a lot of people, you watch that Michael Jordan documentary, and you listen to Michael Jordan talk, and you do get the sense, like, this guy is an asshole, but that's also why he's a winner.
Right.
Like, he does not accept anything less. He does not take, he would not let the death, I mean, Michael Jordan's dad famously died at one point. I don't remember how that all shook out, but the idea that your dad died and you left to take care of your family, and that's a good thing for a person to do, but as a member of a space program, no, that's not what you do. And all of this is constantly swirling around. It keeps coming back around to talk about his dad and how his dad committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And they never really dig into it. It just gets mentioned and dropped, and then...
Doesn't he even at one point say, oh, well, if I die on the rocket, like, kind of like that's his form of suicide? Or is that just subtext?
No,
I feel like that was a point made.
I think the point he made was more about failure as a whole. Like, if he never launches, if he whatever his failure is, that it's the same as his dad's failure to. My dad loved ranching and failed at it, and I kind of feeling like I'm destined to fail at what I love, and it's just. It was like a feel sorry for me moment, but also like you're not really addressing the fact that your dad committed suicide, a very serious thing. Mm-hmm. Like, all of these more interesting stories happen within this movie that are never played out.
He's also a rancher, so he's this kid who is fulfilling his dad's dream. In the same way that he's raising his kids to fulfill his dream.
Yeah, well,
there's this weird cycle.
Yeah, like there's a thing about legacy in here somewhere, but
it's like they wrote a really smart movie
on accident,
and then wrote a dumb one around it.
Like, we better dumb this down. I remember this movie coming out and Billy Bob Thornton doing press for it and saying, like, we want this movie to be like a throwback to like Frank Capra, classic feel-good movies, like these Jimmy Stewart movies he made, like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life. These kinds of things that were about simplistic, naive, everyman characters taking on bigger odds and having bigger dreams.
Is that what this feels like?
No, because even in something like It's a Wonderful Life that has become this beloved Christmas movie for families and old people to watch, there is a super dark edge to that movie that they fully explore. Mm-hmm. And you feel the stakes of the characters in that movie. And it does come together in a happy ending, but it puts you through the ringer to get there. This happy ending is so contrived and forced. You're absolutely right. The failed launch should have been the end of it. The end of the rocket. Right. And then the rest of the movie should have been him realizing, like, the rocket isn't what fulfills my life.
Piece together your family, man.
Right. Like, this guy lives on a gorgeous ranch in Texas. He has a beautiful family. He has all of these great things in this small community. And, you know, the idea, and I realize people live that way every day and don't realize what they have.
Right.
Yeah, like, but that's something that people watching this movie can relate to is, yeah, my dreams didn't work out, and you know what? That's your job isn't what gives you a fulfilling life. You know, like accomplishing a goal isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. This movie just failed on so many levels for me. And I think everything it was trying to be, it kind of falls apart trying to be it.
Yeah. I think another thing is, like, okay, I'm not a director, but I don't think this is directed well. Like, there are two aspects. There's, like, framing and setting up good visuals, but then there's, like, directing a scene and, like, having the actors work in cohesion and framing them the right way and, like, the pace of the scene. And this movie doesn't have that.
This movie's pace is all over the place.
It is, yeah. Right. And so it's like...
The framing, I mean, you want to talk about the shots, I think the cinematography is, like, the best part of this movie.
Well, that's why I broke it down into two things. It's like, I can't just say this is a flat-out badly directed movie.
Well, that's more like a...
Because it looks good.
Yeah, it's a director of photography thing. Like, whoever was the DP on this movie, like, did their job really well.
Right.
I mean, there's some beautiful shots in this movie.
But yeah, the timing, it's all over the place.
The scenes that worked the best for me were any sort of casual sitting around talking scene, like I was talking about. Billy Bob Thornton and the two girls, him watching NASCAR with his father-in-law, which also proves my theory that all the best things happen when your family goes to church and you skip. All the best.
Isn't there a Simpsons episode about that?
When Homer has the best day of his life when he skips church.
Oh my
God. Yeah, those scenes that come off really natural when he goes to see the school nurse for his psych eval. You know,
there's the kid. He's like, "Oh, what are you in for?"
Yes, those scenes are super fun and like. There are individual scenes that work for me.
It's like they think those scenes can just carry the rest.
Carry the whole thing, right. But when you stitch all these scenes together, they don't work. They just don't work as a cohesive...
Because the plot is weird. Okay, so I'm not supposed to be playing, like, script doctor here, but I'm gonna... One big change. I know we said, like, the failed launch... That would be a bad thing. But, like, I think what they were trying to do there is have a, like, aww, have that dip of, like, okay, we think the dream is dead.
Well, I thought it was a dream at the very beginning. It seems like it.
Because it was very fast. It was, like, over and done. It wasn't climactic.
It's timed horribly.
Yeah. But what they should have done instead is had the grandpa die. Like, they had the grandpa die, and then they had the failed rocket, but, like... You already have your downer, like, you could even tie it in so, like, oh, now that this dad is dead, now he has to stay behind and help the family. And then he's ready to stay for his family, but then they're like, no, go.
See, now...
And then you still have that climactic, like, ending, but you don't have this ridiculous, contrived failure.
I hadn't thought about that. But now that you've brought it up, I am looking at it in that light, and I'm going to disagree with you. I think the way they played it was good because there was a low where they were fighting about losing the house. There was a high when he went out and got sponsorship money. Then there was the low again when the grandpa died. And I feel like that highlights... And I don't know how intentional this was or if they accidentally succeeded, in my opinion. That highlights his obsession when he's he could have been like...
He's having manic and low.
No, the obsession would be highlighted by the grandpa dying, saying, I'm not going to let another dead parent hold me back again. That was my failure the first time. I'm not going to... Because right after that is when he...
It's the next scene. It's so sudden.
He talks about suicide, then he leaves a note, and you're supposed to think like that's his suicide note.
Okay.
You don't buy it for a minute.
They don't give you time to buy it, because again, the pacing...
Then the terrible early 2000s CGI rocket launch. I think it was... Could have been more of a highlight of his unhealthy obsession, but they don't commit to portraying the obsession as unhealthy. They just keep on this idea of like, no, he's just a driven man.
Don't watch this movie. Like, I think that's my bottom line.
Ooh, I would also not recommend this movie.
You know, I was really batting strong in this season of the picture show, and then now, you know, I swung and I missed.
You did what we all do, is you take a chance on something. Everybody flips through the streaming services and says, hey, here's something I've never heard of. It sounds interesting. I'm going to check it out.
Right.
And you did what I've done on this show, where I pick movies I've never seen and say, I'm gonna check this out.
A lot of my picks are like that.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it turns out better.
I did find M. David Mullen was the cinematographer on this movie.
Well done.
Seriously, beautifully shot.
Every time they show the rocket, it just like swells up in you like, oh wow.
The rocket shot, great. The funeral scene is great. The opening scenes of that big old wide country when he's in the spacesuit riding his horse.
There's a lot of shots of like the country in this.
Yeah, and also just like when he buys that ride, you know, the rocket ship carnival ride, like that's a great shot when he has his daughter in there and it's like it's a fixed camera and they're just having fun. Like even that is
which
just
I figured out later. That was his
gravity thing.
Right, yeah. I just thought he was like, oh, having fun with the daughter.
M. David Mullen has done a lot of TV. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Westworld, Designated Survivor, Mad Men. He did Sarah Silverman's, let's see. Yeah, We Are Miracles.
Now,
comedy special. Big Sur. He's worked with the Polish brothers on a bunch of stuff. United States of Terra. Stay Cool. Yeah, I mean, this guy has done a lot of
question.
DP stuff.
How does director of photography work? Is it like a single per episode on a show? Or is it like there's a director of photography for the whole series?
It looks like he did like 17 episodes of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He did 1 episode of Westworld. He did 4 episodes of Get Shorty.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably 1 per.
Yeah, a lot of directing on TV is you know, you're hired for an episode or 2 or you know, like it's a revolving door kind of thing.
That makes sense. Just for photography, I feel like maybe more uniformity.
I heard somebody say once that, like, movies are a director's medium, TV is a writer's medium.
It is a writer's medium.
And so, it like, the cohesion comes from the writing. And the director just comes in and kind of... And also just points cameras, right. But...
well, oftentimes the producers are also writers, so they're...
Sometimes, yeah.
So they're writing, but they're also, like...
Yeah.
Here's how this is going to look, and...
Yeah, it's very driven by the pre-production side.
Right.
So...
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he probably fit into Westworld really good, because whatever the shortcomings of later seasons of that were, it always looked good, you know? Like,
right.
Yeah, so, cool. You got anything else on this, besides not recommending it?
Not really. I'm sorry if you watched this to listen to our show, but...
yeah, well, you know. Yeah, this is a movie I feel like... I remember watching this when it first came out and thinking... I just remember being kind of underwhelmed by it. Same thing.
That's strange, because I wouldn't remember this movie.
I remembered very little about it, honestly.
Right.
But in watching it now, I think it's even worse. I think this movie really exists for 2006 audiences. I don't think it comes forward in any way, shape, or form and is relevant to almost anyone today.
See, that's so weird to me, because there's another early 2000s space movie that really has a message and really hits home. Gravity. Like,
oh, yeah.
Gravity. It's pretty much like the same sort of... Except it's not about... It's not about
Gravity's
an obsession.
It's a super different movie, though.
It is, but the main message is about grief.
Right. Yeah.
And how she's giving up after her daughter's death, and she keeps going. But, like...
This movie could have been about grief as well.
Right.
And
well, I guess it's just because these are two movies that are about something, but they use space as, like, the...
Yeah. There was a movie that came out, I want to say a few years before this, called Space Cowboys. That had, like, Clint Eastwood. It's, like, all, like, old men.
Is that, like, Aliens versus Cowboys?
No. It's about, like, these guys who were supposed to be, like, Apollo astronauts. Maybe it was Shuttle. I don't remember. But they had somehow missed their window of being astronauts. And then they had to go up and go. And it's also a very, like, I remember it being a very underwhelming movie. It's kind of like a dad movie. Like, it's
like,
full of, like...
Armageddon.
Yes, Armageddon a few years before this. As well. But that is just a blatant, like, stupid popcorn movie. But also had Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton in it.
Yeah.
This one I also felt like Billy Bob Thornton just kind of gathered, like, his buddies to do this. Like, Bruce Willis just shows up in it.
Hey, you want to see me for a scene? Sure.
Dwight Yoakam has music in it, and Dwight Yoakam was in Sling Blade, which was Billy Bob Thornton's movie. Big Oscar winner for him. We should watch that here. I haven't seen that in years.
How do you know all this movie trivia?
Because I've been watching movies my whole life.
All right. Whatever you say, Siri.
But, 6 Degrees of Billy Bob Thornton. But, I mean, it's just full of... it's like a collection of people that they loosely built a story around, and it's just so weird. This was a weird time for space movies, apparently. There was so many attempts and failures. And then, what year was Gravity?
I think 2007.
Okay. So Gravity came out around then. You had The Martian book a few years later. I feel like you started sort of getting the idea of space movies a little bit better.
Yeah,
What? You poo-pooing The Martian?
No. But there are some bad ones.
Oh, there's always bad ones, sure.
Yeah.
I just don't know if there were any good ones at this time.
I think the main thing is you have to put so much CGI into making a space movie look good now that if a studio is going to do it, they're going to do it properly. I think the last bad one I saw was Passenger, and that was just, like, bad in the way that it was, like, mediocre.
Is that the Chris Pratt thing? I haven't seen it.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I've been curious.
It just doesn't live up to its premise as good as...
Yeah, I don't know. CGI I don't think is even a hurdle anymore. I think CGI is so accessible, especially by a big studio.
Not if you're doing, like, zero gravity scenes. Yeah. I think you've got harnesses, you've got, like... It takes a lot of animation.
Well, you do that plane that they put people on. The Vomit Comet.
Yeah, that's hard to film it.
They do it all the time.
They film like music videos. I don't know if they film...
They filmed Apollo 11 on that thing.
Really?
Yeah. Or Apollo 13. I'm sorry.
That would be like...
Yeah.
I feel like that would be awful.
They filmed Apollo 11. The fake moon mission.
Right, yeah. No, but it takes like 7. They can only be in free fall for like 3 minutes. You've got to keep resetting.
Not even. It's like 30 seconds.
Right. It's quick.
If you look at the average shot in a movie, it's not much longer than that. So, yeah,
but if you're only getting one shot, that's a very slow process.
But that's what they do, and it looks really cool. And they all throw up. There's a big.
I want to see behind the scenes something.
Yeah, they talk about that in like the Apollo 11 or I keep saying 11, Apollo 13 like special features. You know, like they're like, yeah, we would do the shot, and then we would all throw up, and then they'd climb up again and do the shot again. It's really cool. I
want to ride in one of those.
They put Stephen Hawking on one of those things. They didn't just put him on there.
Like, he's bouncing around.
Ow. but
I'm sorry to the family of Stephen Hawking.
But no, it was a really cool video where they took him up and they let him experience zero gravity. And
I've seen people doing it before.
They
it's
had
really
his
cool.
teamer, this guy who studied space his entire life and is sort of trapped in his own body. They let him. I thought it was super cool.
That is cool.
That they, again, position of privilege, but also he kind of earned it. But
the man threw a party for time travelers. He's earned it.
It's great.
He did.
Yeah.
No one showed up.
No one showed up. Yeah. So. Guess that shoots that down.
In this timeline. Anyway.
Ooh, we're doing the Star Trek.
I feel like we keep getting off track just because we don't want to talk about this movie.
I found this with Brokeback Mountain, and I've heard other movie podcasts talk about when you find yourself talking about other movies and like sidetracking yourself, it means you didn't like the movie. Like
it does, yeah.
And I wasn't sure I would have anything to say about this one because I don't want to just come on here and complain.
Yeah, that's never a great feeling.
Especially if you're not like really analyzing what didn't work for you. If you're just coming on here and going, this was dumb, like that's pointless and nobody gets anything out of that. But we didn't get much out of this movie. So
yep. If you don't feed us, we got to feed ourselves.
Fair point. No recommendations on the Astronaut Farmer. Let this one sit on HBO Max. It didn't hurt to watch it, but I wouldn't watch it again if I didn't have to. I don't think I would have watched it yesterday if you hadn't picked it. But I'll
have to clean my palate.
So it goes.
Get a palate cleanser somehow.
Yeah. Well. I'll take care of that next week.
Okay.
Let's do our shoutouts.
All right. I have a YouTuber who goes by Music by Blanks.
Okay.
Mainly because he has a segment called the 1 Hour Song Rewrite that I think is really cool. He rewrites a song. He's got an interesting kind of electric pop style. I'm not like a huge fan of his music per se, but just like to see his process of he takes this popular song that's in a completely different style from him and he finds a way to work it into his style and you get to see the process over an hour. So he shows like clips, like he's got a clock in the shot.
Okay.
And then he's like talking about like, okay, I'm going to put these drums in, and he records a few different, until he finds what he likes and he edits it, and it's really cool to see.
So it's not really a rewrite, it's a new arrangement.
Yeah.
He's rearranging a song in the same way that like it sounds like what Pomplamoose does. You ever see a Pomplamoose video?
A Papamoose?
Pomplamoose. They're a band and they'll take like a song and sort of do like a live recording of it, and a lot of times they'll mash two songs together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of a remix and a rearranging of it. It's really cool. I'll send you something.
That is cool. Yeah, it's more like a remake.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
It is cool.
But he does it in an hour. That's wild.
Or so he claims.
Right.
No.
Deep fake.
But that's music by Blanks.
Cool.
Yeah. What do you have?
I have a single YouTube video. This is a channel that I watch called The Critical Drinker. He does movie and TV and video game reviews. The character persona is like this Scottish drunk who's like complaining about everything.
He's a little too critical of Doctor Who for me, but
he is.
That's just me being personal.
He takes a lot. There's a lot of sort of celebration of political incorrectness, which I think he presents in a very thought out. It's not just like it's presented like I'm just being a dick, but actually like his criticisms of diversity aren't like I don't like women and minorities. They're things that I agree with a lot of times of I don't like when you cast a woman just because you want to check a box on your corporate checklist of things to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but this video is actually, I'm just saying like this channel is not for everybody. There's a lot more nuance in what he's saying than comes across. He comes across very brash and very kind of in your face, but that's also,
but that's kind of like a comedian playing
that's the character
part.
he's playing. Yes.
Right.
But this is a video that I'm calling out individually. It's about the importance of ambiguity and having ambiguous questions asked. And he's talking about a video game. I think it's The Last of Us, which I've not played, but the premise in this game is the cure for whatever the zombie plague or disease is in this girl. And you know, if you give the girl, you're protecting the girl. Is it important to protect her, or is it important to give her to the government to save humanity? You know, save one life or man. And the idea is that there's no clear answer to that. Like and in protecting her, he's also killing people. Like that. It's the idea
this morally gray.
Yes. And the importance of that in storytelling as opposed to this weird almost trend in movies, in TV of we need to explain every single thing and we need to come to a black or white answer on every single thing as opposed to just letting something sit there in the gray area and let you walk away actually thinking about something. His essay is really good about it and why it's important and why we kind of need to get back to that when we're making art as opposed to just we need a definitive judgment and answer for every single thing.
That's a great topic, and I think
it really is.
Like my personal theory for like why there's a lack of ambiguity, because I feel like the past like 20, 30 years, like less and less it's been like hard good, hard bad.
Right.
And I think that's because of like fandoms and like comic book fans and these people like I need to see a body, otherwise a character's not dead.
Right.
Or I need to know, is this character good or are they bad? You need to tell me.
There was a real big rise of like the anti-hero, 10, 15, 20 years ago, where that was real big. Wolverine, this terrible killer, but he also is a good, what I mean? Walter White, Vic Mackey, Don Draper, like these sort of people that now are like, oh man, if this is your favorite character, you're a terrible person. It's like, no, this is the anti-hero. This is, it sort of talks about ambiguity as exploring this idea that even heroes do shitty things sometimes.
You like you can do bad things for a good outcome, like V for Vendetta,
right? Or you can just have a lapse in judgment. You can, people are human. Like, I don't know. It's a really interesting topic. I think it extends out beyond art. We pass judgment on people on Twitter and regular people in the world all the time.
Right.
Without realizing, it's not quite so black and white. And I think it's a great video. He has a few others on there that I may be bringing to the table, things about censorship and so a lot of very hot button issues and sometimes unpopular takes that I think he has some really good points on. Again, the channel as a whole is not for everyone, but I tend to enjoy his content because I think overall he has some really well thought out ideas about making art and its place in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I will link that.
I've never seen the video, but now I want to.
I'm gonna check yours out too.
Whoa! You guys should too.
Please
make
do.
sure to check out the link.
I do put all these shout out links in the descriptions of our show notes and on our show page on Anchor, so you can track it all back and check out all the stuff that we shout out, and we hope you do.
We should probably create like a master list somewhere.
Yeah, I should put it up somewhere. I'll put that on the to-do list.
To be decided.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It helps our visibility and helps us grow the show.
That's right. And another way to help us grow the show is to tell a friend. If you know someone who likes movies, someone who likes astronauts and farmers, and make sure to tell them about our show.
All right. I've got the wheel next week.
What are you putting us through?
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'm more negative on my pick this week than...
No, it's fine. It's fine. I am going to bring a gangster movie to the table. Something I have been wanting to bring here. I've loved this movie for a long time. It gives us a great anti-hero in Tom Hanks. We are going to be watching Road to Perdition.
Okay. Interesting.
I am a... Spoiler alert, I am a big fan of this movie. But I want to introduce it to you, and we'll see where we come out.
When you said gang movie, I was thinking more like West Side Story or, real gang.
Much less singing and dancing in this. This is a movie about fathers and sons. I thought it would be good for a father and son podcast to take a look.
Who's the son?
It's
the father and daughter podcast.
I see my DNA results came in.
All right.
Austin, what's your social media?
I'm Austin.n.Rood, Austin N. Rood, Misunderstood Star, and the Old Who review.
All right. You all out there decide which social media networks those
just
all belong
plug
to.
one in and you'll find out.
All right. I am at philrood.com. I'm also at Phil Rood on Twitter, at philrood75 on Instagram, at Phil Rood on TikTok, and Phil Rood, that illustrator guy, on Facebook, but I'm rarely there anymore. Austin, you want to read the credits?
Yep. We did everything ourselves.
There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.